Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Institute of Business Studies School debate. We are proud to bring to you this debate with partners with NBC and Kundul 2. So we'll move on to the next two schools. We have Mount Diamond Secondary School against the De La Salle Secondary School. Please make welcome now to the stage Mount Diamond Secondary School. We have Hambi Peso, Samuel Imara, Francis Numapo, and Leilani Suwari. For the De La Salle Secondary School participants, we have Graham Stevens, Henry McCarran, Nohu Warur, and Thomas Jones. Please make welcome the De La Salle boys. Their topic of discussion is PNG is rich with natural resources, yet poor. So I'd like to welcome now the first speaker of the affirmative team. Sorry for your information, Mount Diamond is going for the topic and the De La Salle Secondary School is going against the topic. Please make welcome now the first speaker of the affirmative team.
Test. Thank you, dear mistress, the panel of judges, the opposing team members from De La Salle, and the audience and the participants. Let me introduce the affirmative position on the topic, PNG is rich with natural resources, yet poor. With the affirmative team, we strongly believe that we as a country, the Pacific region and the Asian region, cannot be parallel in terms of natural resources compared with the other Pacific countries. But we have very little to show for that richness. We will provide evidence and example to show that the statement is true. Well, I want us to think, as fellow countrymen and countrywomen seated here, in order for us to accept the fact that PNG is rich with natural resources, yet poor, you and I need to understand the following points. Firstly, I'd like to define the term poor. What is poor? According to the Encarta Dictionary, it defines that poor means affected by poverty. Well, poverty, okay. In simple Papua New Guinea English term, I would describe poverty as people have not enough finance or money to afford to buy the life essentials to support their life. Okay, this morning I would like to put in mind and think that we are sitting here as a country. I know that you have villages or districts and provinces that you come from, but this morning, please put in mind and bear with me that we are seated here as a country. We the affirmative argue for the topic from the point of view that majority of the population being poor. According to the PNG Vision 2050, page 22, item 2.3.9, which states that in 2009, 53% of country's population now living below the poverty line, which is more than half of the population of Papua New Guinea. Yes, we are blessed. Papua New Guinea is rich with natural resources, meaning that we have a lot of natural resources. Like some other our neighboring countries like New Zealand, Australia, and other Pacific nations, they see us as a young, beautiful island, made of gold and copper, floating on oil, breathing natural liquefied gas. Or you might confuse with the term so-called natural resources. Well, I'll define it for you. According to the Encarta Dictionary, it defines the natural resource is defined as natural resource is defined as occurring exploitable mineral. Natural resources in the form of land, climate, forest, marine, and minerals. Well, Papua New Guinea As we know, we have plenty of mineral resources in our country. For example, octane mining in the Western Province, Lear in New Island Province, oil and gas in the Southern Island Province, and Pogara, my homeland, in the Hanga Province. When we say that PNG is blessed with natural resources, yet poor, we simply means that PNG has enough gold, copper, and oil and gas, timber, and other natural resources to stimulate its economic growth, thus creating employment and ensuring an adequate standard of living for its population, where basic goods and services are available to all citizens, including workers in the rural areas. Well, the judges and the audience, I would like all of us to think, is this statement a reality in PNG? It's something for us to think. But from my observation and from the positive side of the debating team, I would like to say that from my observation and by looking at our country, I would totally disagree with this statement. Because by looking at this, we are totally below. Okay, my colleagues will be elaborating on the following points depending on the foreign aid. Income as an indication of poverty, standard of living as an indication of poverty. To my point, lack of delivery of basic services is an indication of poverty. Well, we may praise by other countries that we are rich with natural resources, but yet I can say that we are poor. Because I can say that we are poor due to the lack of deliverance of the basic services in our country. Well, let me state an example. According to the website of PNG education system, it is stated that about 15% of children never get to school. And those who go to school, only 45% leave school before grade 8. The other example is in a ratio, extracted from the Encarta 2008, states that in 1999, it was estimated that 36 students is to one teacher in a classroom. But now it has increased that more than 55 students are attending in a class with only one teacher. Well, to conclude my point, I would state and like to stress that it is true that PNG is rich with natural resources, but we are still poor due to lack of delivery of basic services in our country. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the first speaker of the affirmative side. Now I'd like to call upon the first speaker of the opposing team.
Masters of Ceremony, ladies and gentlemen, as the first speaker of the opposition team, I will be introducing our topic, giving a brief outline on each of my members, and rebutting on what the first speaker of the affirmative team had said. But before I do so, in respect of our special guests, the judges, the timekeeper, and you lovely audience, I would like to acknowledge your presence for being patient and giving your time to come here in this debate competition. So, we the opposing team will be strongly going against the topic that PNG is rich in its natural resources, yet poor. Therefore, our topic will be PNG is rich in its natural resources and not poor. Before I proceed on, let me introduce each of my members. As the first speaker of the opposing team, I am Graham Stephen, and our second speaker is Henry McCarey, and he will be talking about environmental aspects. And our third speaker is Noah Warur. He will be talking about the economics and political aspects of the topic. Finally, and not the least, is our fourth speaker, Thomas Jones, which he will be summarizing our topic and giving the recommendations of our saying. So, PNG is rich in its natural resources and not poor. Let me define the topics in the topic to give you a clear understanding on what we will be saying. First of all, natural resources. Natural resources, according to the Economics for the Development Nation Book 1, page 248, natural resources is simply defined as the useful things that come from the land, ocean, plants, and etc. For example, fertile land, gold, copper, oil, culture that we have, and etc. Poor. Poor, according to the Advanced Learner's Oxford Dictionary, there are a lot of meaning of poor. And one of them that I've chosen out from all the meanings, poor is another word for not good, or quality that is low or lower than it is expected. So that brings me to rebut on what the first speaker of the affirmative team had said. You said something about we are rich in our natural resources, but poverty. We face poverty. Poverty can be in begging. We beg, but you said, but we as the opposing team would classify these people as lazy people. Why we are saying this? Because these people are not poor. Because they are not poor, and they are making themselves poor by begging and making life more harder for them. When they should use their own initiatives to use our natural resources to make a living. For example, if the people in 9 Mile on the side of the mountains can cultivate our fertile land for agriculture for benefit living, then we do not see any problem of calling us poor. This is calling us poor. There's a quote from John F. Kennedy, which I will quote. Do not ask what the country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Which it means people who are lazy and dependent to the country so that they are not truly Papua New Guineans. True Papua New Guineans are hardworking, self-reliant, and also they know how to use our natural resources to make a living of themselves. Which it clearly shows that we are rich in our natural resources and we are not poor. And that's the same from Cat Brooks. He says that you aren't wealthy until you have something which money can buy. And yes, I assure you all that we have something which money can buy. And I know you will all agree with me. It is our Melanesian culture. We have a culture or a system which it is unique and full of diverse, which it is valuable to us. And also we have a culture of extended family. When a person is in need, we intend to help one another. That is why we do not face poverty and starvation in our country. Therefore, the culture that we have, it is valuable to us, and money cannot buy the culture that we have. Therefore, we, the opposing team, strongly and firmly believe that PNG is rich in its natural resources and not poor.
Thank you, first speaker of the opposing team. Now I'd like to call upon the second speaker of the affirmative team.
Good morning, everyone. Before I go on, I would like to state what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about PNG's dependency on foreign aid as an indication that Papua New Guinea is rich in natural resources yet poor. Okay. From what the opposition side have stated, it is arguable that they only state about the we've been poor in terms of beggars in the street. Okay, the topic it clearly states that PNG is rich in natural resources yet poor. It doesn't talk about anything affecting us as an individual begging in the street and stuff like that. It talks about the natural resources, what covers the country as a whole. Second thing that I would like to rebut is that they said something about the Melanesian way. Okay, now you look at your home. Like if you stay, like if one of your relatives comes and stay at your home for, let's say, a month, and he's just roaming around the street, come in the house and eats the food and sleep, your parents will not argue with that because currently our prices are rising in terms of food prices. So this Melanesian way is like a thing of the past. We've got to move on. Judges motivating spectators and viewers nationwide. Think of a current development aid project funded by a donor agency in your local area. What does that imply to you? To me, as the second speaker of the affirmative, it is a clear implication that PNG is still dependent on foreign aid, and though rich in natural resources, our dependency on foreign aid indicates that we are poor. How was I so sure that PNG is still dependent on foreign aid? According to the PNG Development and Strategic Plan 2010 to 30, page 150 states that since independence, PNG has been a recipient of foreign aid from various industrialized countries, multilateral financial institutions such as the World Bank, and global funds. So the question is, why are we depending on foreign aid after 35 years of independence when we have a lot of natural resources? The first reason I can give you, according to a document on internal relations developed in the curriculum unit of the Department of Education, PNG, page 53, it states that most aid given to Papua New Guinea is tied, meaning that aid is for a specific project only. And mind you, the disadvantage of tied aid is that it would promote the disadvantage of tied aid is that it would promote tied aid money having spent in the donor country, so creating markets for its export of technology and manufactured goods. You may be wondering, what does this statement mean? Okay, in simple terms, tied aid given for construction of a road, it's a tied aid, so it's given purposely for the construction of the road. Let's say in a rural area of Papua New Guinea. Definitely we are going to export technology and manufactured goods from that same donor country. Why? Can you guess? Because we lack technology and manufactured goods. When this happens, it is referred to as a boomerang aid, and you all know what a boomerang is. It is referred to as a boomerang aid, for the donor country will benefit more than the recipient in terms of export revenues. And in our case, the donor countries will benefit more than us, Papua New Guineans. This will in turn encourage a situation of dependency where we will continue to use and buy products from donor countries. Therefore, and secondly, according to the PNG Development Strategic Plan 2010, page 153, more than 70% of aid given to PNG by donor agencies is diverted to technical assistance. This means the bulk of foreign aid funds committed to PNG are consumed in the hiring of skilled foreign personnel to undertake the task of nation building. And so instead of using the foreign aids to utilize our natural resources, we are still repeating the cycle of hiring the skilled foreign personnel in the form of technical assistance. And to conclude, I would like to recommend that the government of Papua New Guinea can always make good use of foreign aid by driving its own development agenda and educating its people with the use of skills needed for nation building. In that way, we will prevent the bulk of foreign aid funds committed to PNG in consumed by the hiring of skilled foreign personnel, and we are going to look at utilizing our natural resources. Thank you for this.
Thank you, second speaker of the affirmative side. Now I'd like to call upon the second speaker of the opposition.
Once again, thank you to you one and all, and not forgetting the hardworking adjudicators and the timekeeper. As mentioned earlier, my name is Henry Mekere, and I am the second speaker of the opposition side of the team. And I will be basing my topic mainly on the environmental impact. But before I do so, in respect, I would like to introduce the topic again. PNG is rich with natural resources, yet poor. But we, the opposition side of the team, strongly and firmly believe that PNG is rich with natural resources and not poor. Why am I saying that? Later I will come back to that point. But before I do so, I would like to rebut on what the second speaker of the affirmative team had stated. He had stated aid, saying aid. Yes, it is a boomerang, but what goes around comes around. He stated poverty. Poverty. Do Americans experience poverty? Then, do Americans experience poverty? They have natural resources. They have all do they need, and they have what do they want. And they experience poverty. Then why we are not saying that they are poor? That brings me to my points. The environment is everything and anything around us. Environment is important in nowadays society. Being one of the most biodiverse country in the world, undertaking the world largest forest, which is covered 29 million hectares of the land, which is forest. According to the Economic and Development Policy, Volume 1, it is a fact that 87% of the population are living in the urban areas. The rural areas. In rural areas, there is a huge dependency. There is a huge dependency. Therefore, a huge dependency rely mainly on the resources that such as forest, fishery, agriculture, and land. Fishery. In Papua New Guinea, abandoned by the PNG is abandoned by the marine resources. It is covered, or the fishing zones, it is covered by 2.4 million hectares as square kilometers, being the largest in the Pacific Ocean. Forest or forestry. About 2/13 of the PNG's total land mass of 46 million hectares is forested, making PNG host to the world of the largest rainforest. Land. According to my research, UPNG School of Environmental and Social and Geographical TEM, 97% of the land is customary land, and 3% of the government owned. The 3% of the land is owned by the government, and 87% of the population are living in the rural area, and 13% of the population are living in the urban areas. To conclude, I, as the second speaker, and we, the opposition side of the team, strongly and firmly believe that PNG is rich with natural resources and not poor. Thank you.
Thank you, second speaker of the opposing team. Now I'd like to call upon the third speaker of the affirmative team.
Good day, everyone. My name is Francis Numapo. And I strongly agree with our topic that PNG is rich with natural resources but yet poor. Before I go on, I just want to counterattack on what my counterpart said. You compared us with US. So I'll just ask you guys a question, crowd. Are we the same as USA? Did we get our independence the same year as USA? Do we have the same climate? Do we have the same resources? We don't. So why compare us with USA? In terms of poverty. We should compare it with some Pacific Island countries who are just developing. We cannot compare ourselves with developed nations. Secondly, you mentioned all the natural resources in PNG. About the land, about the large forest, about the fish in the sea and all of that. Can I ask you one question? Are we like showing that we have these things in our country? Do you see some positive developments taking place in front of you? We don't. We are slowly developing. We are still developing. Now to my point. I have just one point, which is on the minimum wage. This is a big issue, but we do not yet take it seriously. First of all, minimum wage defined in Encarta Encyclopedia as the least legal wage or salary a person earns for providing specific services. Let me repeat, specific service. Specific service refers to different sorts of services. Like we have different sorts of services that we provide in order to get income. Like for example, a security guard and a doctor, they have a different minimum wage. We cannot compare that, just to reinforce what I'm trying to say to you guys. Okay, firstly, the PNG Minimum Wage Board, which is a government body, is responsible for controlling the fixed rate of our economy or the minimum wage that each public servant or government organization employees get. Okay, what minimum wage board aims to, like it aims to increase our minimum wage, but ask yourself, why is it not increasing? The minimum wage statistics in PNG in 2010 is only 229 per hour. After 8 hours of work each day and 14 days of work, you only earn about 200 kina. Can you survive with 200 kina? I repeat, can you survive with 200 kina for 2 weeks? You cannot survive with 200 kina. Okay, let me briefly state a point that I read out in the newspaper. There was a security guard working at Telecom Humana. This guard is paid 1 kina 20 per hour. And this is below our minimum wage. And he is working at the government organization office, and he is paid 1 kina 20 per hour. How is he going to pay the school fees for his children? How is he going to buy the food for his house? How is he going to sustain his family and life in the city? Ask yourself that question. Now I'll take you through some recent examples in our city and also in our rural areas. First of all, the increase in HIV rate. Why is our country increasing in HIV/AIDS? It's simply because we do not have enough income to sustain life. Therefore, we look for other means. You do not blame those prostitutes on the street. They are looking for ways to supply the basic needs for their families. That's why they go on the street. Secondly, we look at our recent crime rate. It's increasing. But when you read the papers, there's something significant in there. There's always an insider or a person inside the department which links out information in order for the robberies to take place. Why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? It's because he doesn't get enough income. And he still needs some more money to sustain his family. That's why he's doing that. Finally, I have some statistics to compare us with Australia. Okay, we cannot compare ourselves with Australia now. because they're a developed nation, we're a developing nation. But if we go back to when they were developing, between 1965 to 1975, when they were developing, their minimum wage was between $3.13 and $5.15. What natural resources do you have compared to PNG? Why, since 1975 gaining independence, we continue to extract our natural resources, but yet our minimum wage is only $2.29. That's a question for you, the audience, to think, plus the judges. And I strongly believe that the point that we are going for, that PNG is rich with natural resources, but yet poor. We are yet poor. We cannot ignore the fact that we are poor. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the third speaker of the affirmative side. Now I'd like to call upon the third speaker of the opposition side.
Good morning, everyone. Our judges, timekeeper, the government team, and of course, our lovely audience. My name is Noho Warur. I'm the third speaker of the opposing team, and we are strongly going against the topic. We are saying that Papua New Guinea is rich in natural resources, and we are not poor. Before I continue on with my arguments, I just like to rebut on a couple of things that the third speaker stated. Now, you said something about PNG slowly developing. Now my counterpart, I just like to tell you that is what developing means. Gradual change. Development is the gradual change. You also said something about people and the money that they earn, the income that they earn. I just like to tell you that the income 87% of Papua New Guineans live in rural areas. These people, regardless of the amount of income that they earn, depend on the land, the natural resource, the land. Now, to continue on to my arguments, we know that the country is not poor when it is economically and politically stable. That is what I'm going to be talking or basing my points on my speech. Political and economical stability in Papua New Guinea. PNG achieved political stability around 2002 when the integrity of political parties and candidates became a legislation. This made individual members liable to the party leaders and the decisions. Due to this, PNG has experienced a first in its relatively short political history. The Somare Temu government has seen 5 successful years in parliament, or 1 successful term. Prior to this, we did not have that many parties occupying the full term. There were a lot of votes of no confidence against the government. My second point. Now, we've been hearing on the radio, there's a prominent female political leader in Papua New Guinea, Dame Carol Kidu, speaking and stating that according to the UN on the radio, a number of female representatives in parliament depicts a nation heading towards prosperity and development. With the current bill, the drive, the support, and the publicity it is taking, it is most likely that yes, we will have women representatives in parliament. This is of course stating that there is a change in Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea is changing. My third point, PNG's economical stability. One example of this is that PNG did not bow down to the effects of the financial crisis in September of 2008, which shattered the very world for the economical foundations of developed countries around the world. These countries faced a great hike in fuel prices, which eventually led to goods and services prices also going up. PNG did not fall to this and stood strong because we had a strong domestic market within our country. Other points that support this are PNG had bank reserves and trust accounts stored away by our politicians in the past to use during such times. My next point, the measure of a country's wealth is generally based on the GDP or gross domestic product. It is the value of all goods and services produced for final consumption and for investment within an economy during a year. From the Economic and Development Booklet, Volume 1, page 6, the strong GDP growth in 2008 is broad-based and mainly driven by non-mining sectors. Point 4, PNG is also a member of geographical and political groups such as the South Pacific Forum, ASEAN, and the ACPEC groups which promote trade. How can we say we are poor when we are included in such groups that are internationally recognized? We are recognized by these international groups as being influential and having boundless resources, making us, yes, people not poor. Now it is a common sense that when a country is donating to another country, it can sustain itself. It can sustain itself, meaning it has enough, so it is donating. Now I have a couple of quotes from a postcard dated 25th of May 2010. The Prime Minister, Michael Somare, is adamant PNG is well on track to achieve donor status as its economy improves and revenue-based upscale to afford it. I have also another quote from the same article by the founder of this nation, Michael Somare. PNG provides assistance to a number of countries in a number of ways. Michael Somare, Post-Korea, May 25, 2010. Now, all these points state, and we, the opposition, strongly believe that Papua New Guinea, yes, is a nation that is rich in natural resources, but we are not poor. Thank you.
Thank you, third speaker of the opposition side. This is the IBS school debate competition for NCD schools. The current schools debating now are the Mount Diamond Secondary School and the De La Salle Secondary School. The topic of discussion is PNG is rich with natural resources, yet poor. Now I'd like to call upon the final speaker of the affirmative team.
Good morning, everyone. There are a few points from the opposition that can be disputed, and they are the first speaker said something on attitude problem and Melanesian culture. What I'd like to say against that is that we cannot rely on culture alone. Yes, PNG is rich in the Melanesian culture, and we can always share between ourselves. But if we look at the global scale, you can't expect us to compete with other countries if we keep sharing within ourselves, and like we'll be poor, but we'll keep sharing within ourselves, and other countries, they're going ahead. The second speaker said something on the environment. The rural areas, 87% of the population live in rural areas, and most of the land is customarily owned. Okay, something cannot be a resource unless it is used to generate revenue. So you can say that you own land, but unless you're using that land for something, then you are not getting anything from it. All the resources that we have in PNG, we have lots of them, but you're not using them for anything. You're just letting it sort of lie there and it's not doing anything. Also, the third speaker spoke on economical stability. Okay, economical stability can only come about if you get rid of poverty, if you get rid of inflation. And Michael Samari, you said that Michael Samari was saying that PNG is slowly developing. Well, it's going to keep on slowly developing unless we get rid of these things like poverty and inflation. And also the gross domestic product. He said that the gross domestic product doesn't come from mining sectors. So where does our gross domestic product come from? It comes from the natural resources. And if you see the rate in which the gross domestic product is increasing, it's only like 1.7 rate per year or per 5 years or something, which is very low for a country which has been around for 34 years or so. The first three speakers of the affirmative should by now have convinced you, the judges and audiences, and persuaded the opposition team that Papua New Guinea is rich in natural resources, yet poor in almost everything else. What do I mean, poor in everything else? Page 1 of the document of Papua New Guinea Vision 2050, under the title Directional and Enabling Statements 2.1, states that, and I quote, "In 2009, 34 years later, in reference to our independence, we still have not progressed as aspired to at independence. As a country, we have not progressed well, particularly in delivering services to our rural and remote communities. Our national history indicates that we have lacked clear and strategic actions in our development plans, experienced corruption and poor governance, fared poorly in economic performance, been rated poorly in our social development performance," end of quote. The factors that I have just quoted are being given as the rationale for Vision 2050 as indicated on page 1 of the document. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, our being poor is the reason for Vision 2050. At the end of the first speaker's presentation, we have agreed that we are a nation rich in natural resources. Now we have seen through Vision 2050 that we are also in fact a nation in which the poor outnumber the rich. Poverty, as stated on page 17 of Vision 2050, is defined as a lack of access to basic services and infrastructure, as well as access to income and income earning opportunities. As was assessed by World Bank in 2007, estimated that some 53% of the population of this resource-rich nation live below the poverty line. So we have more than half of our population who are very poor and cannot afford the basic necessities to ensure a little bit of the comforts of life, easily accessible to ordinary people in most other resource-rich nations of the world. Simon Ndaka, a principal landowner of the Hides Gas, who was interviewed on SPA's Dateline and viewed on the 26th of April 2010, stated that he and his fellow landowner people are now living in settlements just outside of the Hides Gas compound and are eating tin fish and rice daily and relying on lanterns for light, while right next door the Hides Gas compounds are lighted up with electricity powered by the gas that's coming from his supposed land. The living standards of the people in a country is usually seen in view of how much wealth one has. We equate a high living standard with having lots of money and material wealth. Boys, how many of you drove here in your own fifth element to IBS this morning? Nobody? If you did, then you're probably the son of a member of parliament, no offense. Otherwise, for the majority of us, it is only a dream and may stay a dream for the rest of our lives. We simply cannot afford to own a car. In contrast, a teenager growing up in Australia will probably already own a car in grade 11 and 12. This is because he just happens to be lucky by being an Australian citizen in a country which has a higher living standard than Papua New Guinea. Can I ask you again, how many of you ordinary Papua New Guineans, even the working class, have for breakfast each morning a bowl of cereal and milk? The sad reality is that the majority of our people right here in the nation's capital have only a miserable 30 toya scone or packet of Emna biscuits watered down with home mixed tang and 500 ml Coke. As they say in settlements, the next meal is not guaranteed. What my colleagues and I have been trying to tell you is that the majority of us Papua New Guineans are poor despite how rich our country is in natural resources, and the evidences are all there for us to see. We see it when we go and wait in long queues just to see a doctor in a major state-run hospital. We see it when we are given drug prescriptions to take to the chemist by doctors in these hospitals who have run out of supposedly readily available drugs. We also see our poor state of affairs when we walk on pothole-ridden roads in our cities and towns. We read it in between the lines of offices' notices that say, "Sorry, knockout walk." We see it in the faces of young girls who are forced out of school and into prostitution because their parents cannot afford to pay for school fees, and our government cannot afford to give free education for all Papua New Guineans from elementary to university level education. Thank you, the government, for Vision 2050, because it brings hope to a poor girl like me and many more traveling in the same boat that I am on. I therefore take this opportunity on behalf of my team to emphasize a number of recommendations that have been shared in past as to how we as a country can utilize our abandoned natural resources and, driven by good governance, can see the end of our poor days and welcome the beginning years of prosperity. Number one, develop policies and organizational structures that will enable us to conserve and use our natural resources and environment for the collective benefit of all and for future generations. Vision 2050, page 42. Reduce imports of products that can be produced locally and promote the sale and consumption of these items to our own people. In order to do this, the quality of locally produced goods must meet world standards so that it's competitive in the world market. Encourage downstream processing for fisheries and forestry products, and let's create job opportunities for our own citizens. Vision 2050, page 37. Let's have more of the likes of Pride Furniture and Pacific Tuna Canning. When that happens, we cut down on our unemployment rate and provide opportunities for ordinary Papua New Guineans to better their living standards. We have beautiful beaches, unseen waterfalls, unscaled mountain ranges, and never before documented virgin forests that can be means of developing the untapped tourism industry that again has the potential to provide employment to hundreds of Papua New Guineans. Find ways to equip ordinary Papua New Guineans with the abilities to generate their own wealth. Vision 2050 on page 37 lists 3 steps in which that can be achieved, and they are: citizens to have accessibility to grants, credits, and funding, create more business opportunities for citizens, empower entrepreneurs. Audience, we are poor because we have poor managers. The good news is that corruption and poor governance can be things of the past if legislations are amended to ensure that transparent leaders are elected into parliament. Accountable leaders who can be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to possess above all values integrity. Leaders who will become responsible and trusted drivers to drive Vision 2050 to its intended destination. Yes, Papua New Guinea is rich in natural resources yet poor, but it doesn't have to be that way forever. We as a nation can make a change for ourselves when we can proudly and truly say Papua New Guinea is a rich nation, full stop.
Thank you. That was the final speaker of the affirmative team. Now I'd like to call upon the final speaker of the opposing team.
Good day, Chair Lady, ladies and gentlemen. As the fourth speaker, I will briefly outline the arguments presented by the members of the opposition and rebut to what the affirmative team stated. I would also like to stress that as a member of the opposition, it is our firm belief that PNG is rich with natural resources and not poor. In refute, the members of the affirmative team have stated that Papua New Guinea is poor because of several social factors such as prostitution, high crime rate, unemployment, etc. However, what makes it so sure that PNG is the only country in the world that's out of 182 countries that experience such problems? Papua New Guinea, they have stated that many Papua New Guineans live under the poverty line. Fact, congratulations on that. However, you are ill-perceived to see that PNG is not the only country in this world with such. There are millions of people living under the poverty line in rich developed countries such as South Africa and the United States, according to the Microsoft Encarta 2008. No country in this world is immune to poverty, social problems. Whether it is a rich country, a poor country, a big country, or a small country, you will still face the stark reality of poverty. but this does not make you a poor country. Second rebut. PNG is not only the second speaker has stated about aid, foreign aid. However, Papua New Guinea is not only going to be receiving aid, but also going to be donating aid to other Pacific Island countries, as highlighted by the Prime Minister in the Post-Korea newspaper dated 25th of May. If PNG is a poor country, do you think that even the thought of donating aid to another country would be inevitable? No. He also stated that Papua New Guinea donates aid to PNG because it is a poor country. Let me educate you on something that you are blind to see. Papua New Guinea's geographical proximity is an ideal location for safety for Australia. This was clearly highlighted in the World War II, where Australians had to find refuge in the remote mountainous regions of Papua New Guinea. Australian land is mainly flat, and if a country would declare war on Australia, they would just run over them. But in PNG, we have mountainous, rugged terrain, so Australia had to take cover in Papua New Guinea. Regardless of who you are comparing, as the third speaker of the affirmative has stated, the solid fact still remains that poverty is rife throughout the world. 87% of people in rural areas, they are mainly unemployed. So we cannot compare this. In rural areas, we know that people are unemployed, and whether or not they are earning an income, they have the land there, and land is their life. Land provides the food for them. Land is the source of their life. They don't depend on money. What's the use of money in a rural area where you have land that you own? The Prime Minister recently stated on TV that PNG on Al Jazeera channel that Papua New Guineans are intrinsically somewhat lazy in contrast to the Chinese. Resources are lying there. The last speaker of the opposition affirmative team has stated that resources are just lying there. Resources are not just lying there. Welcome to the light. What is Octary mine? What is Pogera mine? What is the LNG product? What is the agriculture industry? These are not resources lying there. These are resources being used and put to a specific purpose. She also stated something about settlements. Mind you, settlement, the definition of settlement, if you don't know, is a place where people live. People live all over the world. There are settlements all over the world, unless you classify yourself as a pig or a dog, a non-human. What she wanted to say was illegal settlements or squatter settlements. Now over to my summary. Papua New Guinea is one country in this world that is rich and diverse in its culture. Our culture dates back to 10,000 years ago, where the people of Papua New Guinea were amongst the first in the world to cultivate the land. Furthermore, our unique Melanesian culture tells us how we live a life of dependency and assistance entirely of our motherland and our community. Aspects of our unique Melanesian culture include over 800 dialects which are still spoken throughout many areas of Papua New Guinea. Vibrant sing-sings and traditional dances portray the magnificence of our culture. With all that Papua New Guinea has to offer, how can we say that Papua New Guinea is poor? The environmental aspects. PNG's geographical proximity situates us in a country that is largely biodiverse. The large portion of the population depend their livelihoods mainly on subsistence farming. This is based on resources such as agriculture, land and water resources, fish and forestry. Aren't we privileged to be in a country that is so blessed with natural resources? We are so blessed and therefore we are not poor. Fisheries. Fisheries zone covers a distance of 2.4 million square kilometers, being the largest in the Pacific. Papua New Guinea has a lot to offer to the Pacific, starting with its fishing industry. Therefore, we are not poor. We have the marine resources. It's the people's lazy attitude that prevents them from going down to the seas and collecting marine resources for their survival. Agriculture. According to the University of Papua New Guinea School of Environmental Science and Geography department states that 87% of the population live in rural areas and only 13% live in urban areas. Rural areas is where the Bawa culture dates back to 10,000 years ago, when the people of Papua New Guinea were amongst the first in the world to cultivate the land. Furthermore, our unique Melanesian culture tells us how we live a life of dependency and assistance entirely of our motherland and our community. Aspects of our unique Melanesian culture include over 800 dialects which are still spoken throughout many areas of Papua New Guinea. Vibrant sing-sings and traditional dances portray the magnificence of our culture. With all that Papua New Guinea has to offer, how can we say that Papua New Guinea is poor? The environmental aspects. PNG's geographical proximity situates us in a country that is largely biodiverse. The large portion of the population depend their livelihoods mainly on subsistence farming. This is based on resources such as agriculture, land and water resources, fish and forestry. Aren't we privileged to be in a country that is so blessed with natural resources? We are so blessed and therefore we are not poor. Fisheries. Fisheries zone covers a distance of 2.4 million square kilometers, being the largest in the Pacific. Papua New Guinea has a lot to offer to the Pacific, starting with its fishing industry. Therefore, we are not poor. We have the marine resources. It's the people's lazy attitude that prevents them from going down to the seas and collecting marine resources for their survival. Agriculture. According to the University of Papua New Guinea School of Environmental Science and Geography department states that 87% of the population live in rural areas and only 13% live in urban areas. Rural areas is where the bulk of Papua New Guineans live, mainly living on subsistence farming. Agriculture is the key to reducing poverty and hunger. It's people's lazy attitudes that prevents them from working the arable land. Papua New Guinea is not like a country in Africa that's full of deserts where you cannot work the land to produce productive fruits and vegetables, rather food. Furthermore, Papua New Guineans have at hand the most profound or significant resource that a person needs for survival. Our total land area covers 461,690 square kilometers of land, as stated in the 2050 Vision booklet. Of this, 97% of land is being owned by the traditional landowners. The very commodity that our people for generations have shed their blood on is not lacking in Papua New Guinea. How can we say that PNG is poor when 97% of all land is owned by the citizens of Papua New Guinea? The economic aspect. We were not significantly moved by the economic recession that shattered economies of big, rich, developed countries and left millions of people jobless. This further proves our economic strength and sustainability that is not occurring in poor developing countries which have economies that are small and vulnerable to collapse in such situations. Our economy is growing at a fast rate, in fact the fastest rate in the Pacific, and thus we have a strong GDP. We have potential to change this country. We have potential to bring many development projects into the Pacific, to fund money into the Pacific, because we have the resources. To conclude, nowadays, in no way is PNG a poor country with the arguments presented forward. With our rich and diverse culture, stable economy, growing GDP, abundance of natural resources, we are not poor. Problems of social indicators of unemployment, crime rate, does not entirely reflect that a country is poor, because of the fact that each and every country in the world, regardless of the size and power, faces similar problems. People who are making themselves. However, that doesn't mean a country is poor. If you base your arguments on that, then why not call the whole world poor? Because in the whole world, they are facing similar problems to Papua New Guinea of unemployment, of prostitution, of rape, of high crime rate. Finally, my recommendations. Well, of course, there are hard times ahead of us. But what we need to be educating our people is that the people of Papua New Guinea are not poor. They have the resources. We cannot let others come into our country and tell us that we are poor, because we are not. We have the resources, and most of all, our motherland. To the people who are living like poor people in the cities, I would advise that you should go home to your villages where you own the land and cultivate that land. We can sit back and expect others to come and do things for us. We have to be self-reliant. We have to be productive and innovative to rise to the future generation. Therefore, as the final speaker of the opposition, it is with great substance that I firmly and most strongly believe that Papua New Guinea is rich with natural resources and not in any way poor.
Thank you. That was the final speaker of the opposition side. Please, a round of applause for the two teams. So now we'll have our 5 minutes question time. 5 minutes question time, yes. We have a young lady there. Please come and ask your question.
Okay. Economically, we as PNG, we are developing. You see our imports is more than our export. We import more than our export. You say that poverty is begging, yet our governments are begging from the foreign aid to sustain you and I. So how can you see the people suffering out in the streets, like blindfolded, and people who are disabled, they cannot get anything from the people like you and I? Okay, my question is, did you feed your breakfast with a beggar on the street, and did you come here? That's all.
That was a nice question, but I would kindly like to ask you where you have obtained your information. You said that income is more than the exports. Do you have any facts to support what you have just stated? Obviously, you don't.
Any more questions? We want reasonable questions, please. Yes, young lady from Comnets.
Okay, this question goes to the opposing team, to De La Salle, especially to the first speaker. Now, at the end of your speech, you mentioned that money cannot buy our culture. You look at our land and environment. These two are vital elements in sustaining our culture. Now look at the mining activities that are taking place and are taking place in our country, such as Pogera or Teddy. These mining activities are turning our land, our agricultural areas into commercial or mining areas. Now, if you're saying money cannot buy our culture, isn't mining buying our culture? So please, can you justify your statement?
Oh, so you are saying about art. So what you're saying is about the industries and projects that are held in our country have been bought by a culture, right? Or first of all, you must know that culture is not the land that you have. It is the lifestyle. the lifestyle that we are living, which you must know that we have a system, like I have said earlier, we have a system of extended family. When someone's in need, we intend to help one another. And not only that, culture. Money cannot buy the culture, because you must know that culture is the character that we have. And character, it is a distinctive quality that a person has naturally. So if we are saying that culture, character, it is the distinctive quality that we have. So money cannot buy the quality, the character that we have. So did I answer your question?
We'll take one final question. Yes.
Good day. My question is basically to the government, the government team. When you're saying that PNG is poor, yet we have natural resources and yet we are poor, can you really specifically state in which sector we are poor? Because what the against team has said, they give evidence that the economy is definitely booming. Agriculture sector is rising, and of course, we are growing economically. So would you specify which sector we are poor? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a nice question. That shows that you are paying attention. Okay. Let me give you one question back. Before I answer your question. No, before I answer your question, I give you one question first. Okay. Do you have proper health care and education right in your village? Right in your village. Or you do that? Okay, I think you're in America. Okay, to answer your question, PNG is rich with natural resources but yet poor in terms of infrastructural development. The basic services are not being brought to our rural areas. The basic services are only circulating around the cities, also the cities and also the provinces. The government is trying to bring these basic services there. But we cannot say that the rural areas are fully equipped with the infrastructural development, which includes roads, bridges, education, health centers. We also have poor medical supplies in our rural areas. And also, if you go to Trumel Hospital, as one of my hospital, sorry, as one of my friends mentioned for comments, yeah. When you go to the emergency, it's not emergency. You understand what I'm trying to say? When you go to emergency, it's not emergency. You go and wait. But in other countries, when it's emergency, you don't need to go there. They bring you there. They come and pick you where you are living in helicopters or buses, and they bring you there. This shows that we are still poor. Despite having all these natural resources, we do have countless number of resources compared to other countries, reminding you. And for us to compare ourselves with other countries and say that they are richer than us and we're poorer than them, we cannot do that. We are rich in terms of natural resources, but yet we are poor. These natural resources are not wisely used. Like referring to you about the land. We do have land, it's a resource. But it's a land, it is not a resource. But it only becomes a resource when you use it and you get the output. It becomes a resource. So we have about 3% of our land owned by the people, but are we using it? all this land. That's why we do not have a maximum output. That's why we cannot say that we are rich. We are still poor.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the judges' remarks. I call upon Dr. Mark Solon to give his remarks on these two debating teams.
Again, I would like to commend the presenters and the confidence in which they came out and presented their arguments. They continue to emphasize the need for research, where they make reference to areas that they have researched the documents on, and we are aware that they are going onto the internet. That is a resource that we have and we must use. And again, I congratulate the presenters on that point. One other point that we are beginning to realize, and it's coming through now, is the presenters are also beginning to make recommendations, which is wonderful. We need those recommendations. Recommendations that should follow the arguments of the team. And that they must make sense. They must be also practical. So we are beginning to see that. So that is progress as we move forward. And more importantly, we notice also the constructive debate that follows after the presenters. You are taking the opportunity and coming out and confidently presenting your point of view and asking the questions to the presenters and to the rest of the public. That is good. That's what we call rhetorical questions. Questions that need not be answered but are important to make us think. So those are some progressive indicators that we have noticed, and we are enjoying the discussions, except that we have to have the hard decisions to make some people go ahead of others. But otherwise, we are doing very well, and we commend you for the participation. Thank you.
Let's put our hands together to the two teams as I call out their names for them to leave the stage. Mount Diamond Secondary School. Our participants were Kemi Peso, Samuel Imara, Francis Numapo, and Leilani Suari. Please put your hands together for Mount Diamond Secondary School. De La Salle Secondary School, our participants were Graham Stevens, Henry McCarran, Nohu Warur, and Thomas Jones. Please put your hands together to the De La Salle boys.